just talked with Jakari. When you look at kind of the stretch that he's had, especially when it comes to assists to turnovers, just what has made him so effective in that category and just his ability to facilitate the offense?
You know, some players play to play, some players play to win. He plays to win. That's why he's won everywhere he's been. The point guard position, probably the most impactful position as it equates to winning. There's no such thing as a good point guard that doesn't have a history of winning. That's kind of like what makes a point guard great. They know how to win. And he's won everywhere he's been, being the guy, and that's what makes him special. So just he plays to win, and so he makes winning plays.
He was your first transfer commit. Just when you guys were trying to get him here, just what was it about him that you felt like he could have this kind of impact on your offense?
You know, I knew there'd be a little adjustment just coming to the SEC, but same deal. Like if you heard Coach recently in another sport talk about that he recruits players with production instead of potential. Like he's always produced everywhere he's been, winning wise and statistically. So that doesn't change, and he's got the way that we play. If your guards, the size doesn't matter as much at your 1 and your 2, as long as he can exploit the other team's guard with full court pressure, and you got to have the right heart to do that. And he obviously has all that.
With your coaching eye, what do you see that you'd say this is why the Aggies are playing such good basketball now that maybe you see that as a coach that other people just don't see?
Well, I think we're playing with maximum effort and we're playing unselfish. I think that's really like in all sports. That's pretty much what it comes down to. We can overdo it, but if you're playing with maximum effort and you're playing unselfish, you're going to play with a lot of confidence. And I think with any team sport, it's really that. And that starts in practice. Like you giving everything you have in practice and outworking the competition. So I think we are doing that. Our players are doing that. They're playing hard. They're working hard in practice, and they're together. It's not about them. You hear the saying, you got to lose your individuality for the sake of the team. And everybody on the team has to give up something that they want to accomplish that season for the sake of the team. If you're ever going to have a true team, you don't have a team till everyone does that. Till every player on the team gives up something they want to accomplish that season individually for the sake of the team. Maybe it's a player who wants to start, we're going to bring you out the bench. Maybe a player wants to score 15, we need you to score 8. Maybe a player wants to be a shooter, but we need you to be a screener and a rebounder. And maybe a player wants to get 3 minutes a game, but he's got to be on the scout team. And I really think this team is into their roles and doing what it takes to help the team first do well.
Is it maybe unusual or just difficult to assemble a team like that when you're got guys coming in transfers probably have ideas of what they want to do, as opposed to guys that maybe developed through a program over the course of 3 or 4 years?
There's no doubt. I think when you look at college basketball right now, you don't see a lot of teams with great identities. You don't see a lot of true teams anymore. Unless they have retention. You can look at some of the good teams that Purdue's right now. Those guys, they have retention. But I think that's what you're struggling with college basketball in general. I'm not saying that we don't have it's in the most talented that college basketball's ever been. It probably is. But I'm not so sure the teams in the early 2000s wouldn't run these teams. I really mean that, because you had players that were part of a program and would lay it down and die for the freaking place where they're playing. And maybe not as talented, but you saw that because you had retention of players. So it's a challenge. Obviously, I think our team is where it needs to be, though.
Kind of to what you were saying just a minute ago, are there any maybe 1 or 2 guys in particular that have really set aside maybe their individual preferences for team goals and aspirations that you've seen just really flourish and have a huge impact?
I think every player has, but I think you could ask that question the other way. And I'm not going to say any players' names, but the players that weren't willing to do that early in their lack of success, and also the team success. So I think that's the thing that's funny about it. The players that are unwilling to do that and just want to go rogue and do their own deal, it never works out for them anyway, right? So like, why would you do that? You know, you want to do something. This is a team thing. So like, why would you play a team sport? Why wouldn't you just play golf? Like this is what it is. So like, I can't coach players that are playing by different rules. Like, and what I mean by different rules is, I'm under the assumption this is about the team being good. So if we're playing by different rules, it's not going to work out because I'm not going to change my mindset, right? And guess what? That's going to give every individual the chance for them to do well. You know, the saying is, as a coach, you got to look at it program first, team second, individual third. They're saying, well, you don't care about the players. No, we care a ton about the players. But if you ever get that out of order, every one of those can't flourish. If you keep that in mind, everybody can flourish. And I think, you know, obviously building this early, you know, everybody wasn't where they are now mentally. And I think everybody now is really enjoying being a part of the team.
How much do you maybe change how you motivate the players or how you guys kind of talk about things now that maybe y'all's backs aren't quite against the wall like it were going into conference play when y'all didn't have any quad 1 or 2 wins, and now y'all have a few and you know, top of the SEC standings?
Yeah, it's a good question because we're going to get teams' best shots. And, I mean, even tomorrow, like we're talking about this team's won, if I'm correct, and y'all could look it up, I think the last 4 times they've been in here. I had the stats. I think we're 2-7 versus them, maybe our last 9, or 3-9 versus them, the last 12. So this team's been in every game. They've played teams well. So, you know, I think that's the biggest thing that we got to recognize is exactly that. You can go start looking at some of the history in some of these games when teams play late games Wednesdays and early games Fridays versus a team that played Tuesday this year. You can start looking at, you know, there hadn't been a team win yet so far in that scenario. 0-5 with an average point differential by 14 points, lose by 14 points. So why am I saying that? You're like, hey, coach, you're setting this. No, I'm not setting up. This is what we need to understand, that our backs are against the wall. And we got to take on that underdog mentality, and we have an opportunity to do something that hadn't been done here in the last 4 tries. And we also have an opportunity to do something that no one in the SEC's done this year on Saturday, which is to play a late night game on Wednesday and win an early game on Saturday versus a team that played Tuesday. So, like, that's kind of how we motivate and look at it.
How much does preparation and kind of the schedule change when you're playing 8 p.m. Wednesday, and then you think you're playing 2:30, but now it's noon? Does that kind of mess up with the rhythm at all, as opposed to when you guys have been playing Tuesday, Saturday, and it's maybe more of a 6 p.m. and a night game on a Saturday?
Yeah, well, obviously we prefer whatever our standard is because we're obviously used to it. But at the end of the day, like, you know, we're not asking our players to all of a sudden divert and go, you know, invade the beaches of Normandy, right? I mean, like, we're telling them, hey, we're going to move the game up 2 hours. You know, there's some planning, but it's not it's not that extreme. And so I think that you know, you like things consistent, but it is what it is. And I think everybody across the SEC is probably going to deal with something like that this Saturday.
Both Pop and Jakari mentioned kind of a shift after the SMU game that a lot of people really crystallized and bought in. Kind of what shift did you see in the team after that, you know, and then leading into conference play?
I thought we probably had some shift before it, you know, like heading in the right direction. But I think that in that game, I think everybody recognized in that game that no matter what you do and how hard you play, if you are not focused in practice and you let details slip, you're going to feel like we did in that locker room after the SMU game, because we did everything we did, fought back, guns blazing, all that from a deficit to have a 4-point lead. And then the details of what we had practiced allowed them to win the game with our turnovers. And there were certain details with press break that we had some guys who were out probably should have been more focused on what we were doing strategically. We weren't in the right spots. And we're able to use that as an example of how important it is that you do your job, because the margins are so small that if you do your job right 80% of the time, it's not going to work versus good teams, right? And the same deal with everybody. If you show up to work 8 out of 10 days, you're probably not going to have a job, or you're not going to be a successful organization. And so above all else, I think we learned that.
One more, Jakari. He had mentioned how his jump to the SECs really had to increase some of his physicality. Just what have you seen from him in that regard? And has there been a game so far this season, or even in conference play, that's really stood out, his ability to go toe-to-toe physicality-wise?
Yeah, I mean, he's learning that he's got to use his size to an advantage in the full court, and then obviously since he's smaller and quicker, like he needs to, if you're small, you want to be quick and fast. You don't want to allow them to use their physicality on you. So you need to create separation and maintain separation, and that's what you see him out of these ball screens and all this stuff. He's not going to let guys just crowd him, But again, the thing with Jakari, it's not like Jakari grew up playing as a player who was 6 feet tall in high school and was playing against guys that were smaller than him. And so he's had to learn to adapt to being small. He's been a smaller player his whole life, So like he knows how to deal with that. The guys who struggle are those guys they grew to 6'4" in the 6th grade and never grew another inch. Then it's like they don't know what to do. Like Kari knows what he's been at his size his whole life.
Does the mother-in-law defense have to be applied to Michi Johnson too?
It's got to be applied to everybody, Hey, the mother-in-laws applied to everybody. Do they apply that constant nagging and harassment at all times? Of course they do. So we got to do the same deal.
But especially, because Josh Hubbard was such a focal point
Yep.
of Mississippi State and what they want to do. Is Michi similar, or?
He's a great guard. I mean, he's just a really, really good guard, attacker, can score different ways, got shooters around him. It's a tough matchup. So anytime in this league, I mean, you're going to see great guard play. And, I mean, it's just not a coincidence that, you'll see South Carolina, I mean, were they beating LSU by 30 at their place at one point? I mean, 50-22. I mean, at LSU, no, we weren't beating them like that here at home. So, guards in this league, man, they cut your lights out quick.
After the Mississippi State game, Chris Janice talked about how Hubbard wore down mentally, just playing against your system. You've talked a lot about how, it causes fatigue physically, but how does kind of playing against y'all really wear teams players down on the mental front?
Well, I mean, I don't want to speak to other teams, but I know this that the physical affects the mental. You know what I'm saying? And toughness is obviously a big part of the game of basketball. And I think when coaches we talk about toughness, people think toughness sometimes they misconstrue it as 7th grade toughness, 6th grade toughness, which is man, this guy said something to me, I'm gonna go fight him. You know what I'm saying? This guy, he kind of pushed me, so I'm gonna go get a technical foul and show him that this is my house, right? That's the weakest thing ever. That's the mentally weakest, softest stuff ever. That if you don't get it, that they can mentally take you out of your game like that. So I'm not gonna speak on other teams, but I speak to our teams that I expect them that there is no such thing as getting tired. You just can't get tired. And what I mean by that is Rick Pitino's a great coach, and he said that he wanted certain things out of players, and he said he wants great athletes. He said, what do you mean by a great athlete? A great athlete is just one that doesn't get tired. So you'll hear this mental weakness by players, and I'm not talking about another team. I've coached some of these players early. It's what happened? I was tired. Let's just make that synonymous with soft. Why'd that happen? Oh, because I'm soft. And if you start looking at it that way, then you'll stop getting tired and using that as an excuse to be tired, right? And I think that's when you feel that you're winded, you got to lock in more mentally than ever. You really got to find yourself to really lock in more mentally than ever. If you're driving home at 4 a.m. and you're really sleepy, right? Now is not the time to get tired. Now is the time to mentally be like, I got to be like locked and dialed in. And so that's what we want out of our players. I'm sure all coaches from other teams probably would say the same thing.
What makes this team look like a tournament team right now for you besides the confidence and the identity?
I think that we got good players. I think we have older players. I think we can win a multitude of ways. I think that we're playing really good defense right now, which travels. I think that if we continue to play well and prove ourselves in this league, we can obviously do it versus anybody. I think that what we have and the way that we play, we could beat anybody. I really believe that. It's just that we're not playing just. We're not some of the really great teams in the country who have great players. They may have some teams out there that have some better players. Let's just call it, maybe you play against a team that's 5 NBA players. But we're not going to play them in the same game necessarily, right? You know what I mean? Like, I always do football terms. Like, if one team is great at the power I on offense in football, and they run the same, whatever defense in football, and you have worse players and you do the exact same thing, you're probably going to lose, right? But what we do with spreading the floor, with our shooters everywhere, we can do that with anybody. And now that we're defending at a high level, I think that not only are we trying to get to the NCAA tournament and win enough games in the league, we're trying to win every game in the league. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's our mindset. Like, we want to do the things you can do that give you that opportunity. Not focus on winning, but doing the things you can do, because we feel if we do that, we're going to have a great chance we should be in any game. And we would say that, if we can do it in this league, you can do it versus anybody.
Does y'all's improvement defensively, does that have to do with just gel and time in the system, or is there another tweak that you guys have maybe made to help you guys improve?
I think the biggest thing is what you said, and that we did not adjust anything. You know what I'm saying? I think that's probably more important. Like, why are we good at what we do now? Because we continue to do what we do. And I've coached basketball long enough and been a part of sports long enough. The worst thing you can do is, if you believe, the benefits of being a head coach a long time is you know what you believe in, right? There's this coach that told me this one time. It was like a 7th grade mindset, but it was like, know what you believe in what you know. That way, when times get really tough, your character really show in what you believe in, right? And so, like, it's not like when we started the season bad, it's like, oh, let's just change it. We're going to run 2-3 zone, and we're going to now just run the flex on offense. Like, and then, that didn't work the next game, so now we're going to run, the will offense, and we're going to be in a 1-3-1 zone, and then the team has no identity ever, And so I think the reason we are, because we stick with what we do, and we just try to get better and better and better and better at it, and now we're to that point.
Last question.
Was moving the game up, was that a league decision? Was there any consideration at all moving it even up to today, or even postponing it for later, just given the weather situation?
Yeah, there was some consideration that you could moved it to next week, but they play Wednesday. We don't play, so they couldn't do it on Tuesday. League recommended it, and so most teams were doing it to try to help the other team so they could get out of here. I do want to say this, because I think this is very important, that we check the weather. We moving this up will. The most important thing, it should allow our fans to all get here with no issues, So, look, what do they always do before they tell you about investing money? I got to preface this by saying I'm not a weatherman, so if anyone gets in an accident after they leave here, I'm not getting sued, okay? I can't predict the weather. So there we go. Now that we got that out the way, all right, this should be no problem for us to get to this game, and back from this game. And this is a very good team, a team that has beat us 4 times in a row in here. We got to come in here like underdogs. We got to have everybody getting here. We need our students here, right? Hey, you may be locked up Sunday. You can't get out. You don't want to catch cabin fever. Let's get here, Reed Arena. Let's have a great time, and then we'll safely do what we got to do to get to where we got to get to. But should be a fun time to all get out. We need everybody to get here. That means y'all, too, now. No any excuses out of y'all, all right?
Thanks and gig 'em.